Employees at Microsoft are calling for the company to cancel a multi-million-dollar contract, which would allow the U.S. Army to use the HoloLens during combat. This comes after Microsoft won a $480 million bid back in November 20th. AT&T supply prototype as for the outhouse during combat missions and in training, and could eventually lead to the military purchasing over 100,000 headsets. A group called Microsoft Workers for Good posted an open CEO, Satya Nadella and President and Chief Legal Officer Brett Smith, urging for the contract to be cancelled and a strict ethical guidelines to be put into place. We are alarmed that Microsoft is working to provide weapons technology to the U.S. military, helping one country's government increase lethality using tools we built, reads the letter. We did not sign up to develop weapons, and we demand the same in how our work is used. Microsoft Workers for Good is requesting that Microsoft cancel the contract, cease developing weapons technologies, draft a public-facing acceptable use policy, and appoint an independent ethics review board to enforce this policy. There are many engineers who contributed to HoloLens before this contract even existed, believing it would be used to help architects and engineers build buildings and cars, to help teach people how to perform surgery or play the piano. The post continues. On behalf of workers at Microsoft, we are releasing an open letter to Brett Smith and Satya Nadella, demanding for the cancellation of the U.S. contract, with a call for stricter ethical guidelines. If you are a Microsoft employee, you can sign at https://t://958rv5 Twitter, Commons 5P4FA7X. The 2019 Game Developers Conference will feature an exhibition called contr that uses alternative control schemes and interactions. Gamasutra will be talking to the developers of each of the games that have been selected for the showcase. Extra Reality Codebreaker gives players what appears to be an OTV, tasking them with interacting with 16 puzzles on different channels. Finding the answer to those puzzles is just the beginning, as players must then look at the information they have found and work it out in the real world. Gamasutra spoke with Paul Ledwich, developer of Extra Reality Codebreaker, to learn about the difficulties faced in designing puzzles around a single input. We also talked about the developer's interest in engaging the player outside of the game world, bringing play beyond the screen, by drawing the input interact into reality. My name is Paul Ledwich, and this was a solo project. I did all of the programming, hardware engineering, puzzle design, art, and woodworking. Extra Reality Codebreaker is a puzzle game involving finding hidden codes in strange, interactive television channels. There are two dials on the box. The top dial selects the puzzle, while the bottom dial is what you use to solve it. Each puzzle leads to a 5 or 6 letter English word, which is your hidden code for that puzzle. I have been reading a lot about sculptors recently, and I was struck by an essay by Donald Judd called Specific Objects. In it, one of the points he argues is that we have done utter disservice by placing it behind a frame, separating it from the viewer. His solution to this was to create objects of solid materials that were placed in a room, in a way that forced the viewer to engage with the object. I liked the idea of performing a lift like that to get a player to engage with an input interaction. But instead of moving the game scene out from behind the screen into the real world, like via AR, I thought that I would try listing the whole input interaction, and have the player mimic the interaction outside of the game. I wanted to design a game that explored how an input device can be used to control something. In order to do that, I needed a puzzle architecture that was flexible enough to accommodate a large number of different mechanics, using English words as the answers, along with finding the and breaking codes, seemed to be the solution to those issues. The game is designed to explore dial interactions. As a result, the dial needs to be used in as many different ways as possible. In general, I started with the possible way for a dial to control something, and built the puzzle around it. The tricky part there is that you need a way to extend the interaction in order to design the second step of each puzzle, which was not always possible. I really enjoy the design of old television sets, especially the wooden ones. This game does not need very many inputs, so it made sense to make the design simple and minimalist. I wanted to make the first step of the puzzle straightforward so players would have something to latch onto when they started in the puzzle. The second step is harder, but in order to make the game more approachable, I created 16 sets of laminated objects that act as solving aids. They can be written on with a dry erase marker, and they serve as a guide to the second step. In addition, no puzzle requires sound or color to solve. I wanted to make the game as accessible as possible. I made a game called Rip, which was a logic puzzle game that tried to let solvers down an interesting solve path by carefully mapping out information at every step of the puzzle. It was showcased at PAX East a few years ago, with the Indie Meta booth. Extra Reality Codebreaker is run on a Raspberry Pi. It's coded in C, and uses the experimental Opingo drivers on the board. I coded it on my Mac in Zoot, using Opingo 3.1GLXL 330 shaders. The Raspberry Pi only runs Opingo 2.1 and GLSL 120. However, so every time I have coded a new feature, or written a new shader, I have had to port the code from the newer version to the older one. This is definitely not the best way to do this. The case is made from African palm oak wood, which gives it a nice orange color. The front panel is laser engraved maple. I am also building 2 other boxes out of Purple Heart and Winch. Unique controllers enable unique interactions. Without a standalone box with the dial, there would be no way to perform the lift mentioned above, which is what the whole game is designed around. The puzzle mechanics and game would not make sense with a different type of controller. Swedish publisher THQ Nordic has raised SEK to $1,225 million by issuing 11 million new Class B shares. The new shares were valued at around $190, $20 per item, and were snapped up by existing investors and newcomers, like First National AP Fund, Second National AP Fund, and Open Folder. THQ intends to use the cash to finance the acquisition of more franchises, game studios, and other assets that complement the company's wider operations. As has become clear in recent months, the company has no qualms when it comes to spending, and just last week dropped $47.5 million on Kingdom Come: Deliverance developer Warhorse Studios. Prior to that, it acquired Australian publishing partner 18.2 Goat Simulator developer Coffee Stain Studios, and Wreckfest creator Bugby Entertainment. It's also been splashing the cash on notable franchises like Kingdoms of Amalur, Alone in the Dark, Time Splitters, Outcast, and Carmageddon. With months to go until this year's Become Developers Conference in San Francisco, organizers are excited to announce that some of Walt Disney Imagineering's leading minds will be at the March event to share what they have learned about designing exciting, compelling interactive experiences. As part of the DD 2019 Vision Check, a series of high-profile talks exploring the future of the game industry, Walt Disney Imagineering Creative Director Sarah Thacker and Executive Creative Director Brent D. Strom will present Playing with Magic, Interactive Worlds, and Walt Disney Imagineering. This is a rare opportunity for you to learn firsthand about the opportunities and challenges of building physical, interactive worlds, and explore the overlap between designing theme parks and video games.